Hi everyone. Thanks for coming today. Great turnout. Definitely the biggest audience I've ever heard. A little scary. I think this panel needs little introduction, but for those of you who don't know, this is Jeff, who's GM of 24, Matt Buckland from Creative Spark, and Seth Rotherham from Two Oceans Fire. Seth arrived fashionably late, but came with notes. So we're going to be talking about digital media today, and I think I just want to kick off by saying, how many of you have consumed media in the last hour? Half an hour? 10 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay, so I don't think we have any concern about how important this is and how it's changing our lives and changing other people's lives all the time. It's becoming increasingly complex with new technologies and different services that are available that are forcing both publishers and consumers to change the way they consume and publishers the way that they deliver content. So we're going to start by looking at multi-platform publishing and what that actually means and whether or not we're ready with it. So I'm going to start off with Jeff. In terms of multi-platform publishing, do you think that this is something we're actually ready for and we should be considering at this stage?
So look, I mean, I kind of have this view, and I kind of, this idea of multi-platform publishing. What the hell is multi-platform publishing? It's publishing. We, as people who exist in the media space, we put out information, okay? And I don't think it should really be a concern for us on what platform we put that information out. Our drive is to engage an audience, and we've got to find that audience at the space and time that they want to engage with the content that we put in front of them. So for me, it's a no-brainer. On every single device that comes out, and every single opportunity that consumers have to consume media, as publishers, we should be looking at that. We should be looking at opportunities in that space to get content in front of eyeballs, in front of people who want to be informed or engaged, one way or another.
So Matt, do you think that we are reaching a wider audience with multi-platforms or the same audience in different ways?
You're reaching the same audience and you are reaching a wider audience. I mean, there are people that are discovering new brands for the first time because they're avid iPhone users or they're avid Android phone users. So I definitely think we're extending the audience. On the app level, you might be reaching more of the same audience, especially if you kind of play in the early adopter space. But certainly if you've got like a WAP presence, for example, you're very likely to be reaching kind of a lower LSM or a emerging market type audience. There's an absolutely overwhelming number of platforms, and the common wisdom is to go onto all of them, get your content onto many of them. And being a small business owner, I used to have this view where I had the NASPAS money to burn, so get onto all the platforms.
Invest.
But now
you prefer the word invest. Stay away from the word burn.
I have a different view, and that is that you should try and obviously target that platform that represents the sweet spot for you. So don't automatically jump onto iPhone because it's nice and shiny and beautiful, and your chairman or your friend's got one or you've got one. But certainly you need to find that kind of sweet spot that will represent like good value for your brand. That means kind of looking at some kind of WAP presence. Don't forget WAP. WAP, I know it's not as sexy as an iPhone app, but WAP is really, really important. That's where the majority of South Africans and Africans are accessing websites. If you wanted to go into the app space, there also are kind of clever and cheap ways to get into like the app space. For example, the iPhone app space. You can kind of look at quasi applications and websites that kind of work together. They're app makers like Mobile Roadie and appmaker.com, for example. So I don't think it's automatically a given that you jump into the application world, but I definitely think that if you can find a clever way of getting there, it's worth looking at it.
Well, I think looking at that, I think we know that there's been a change in the way that we consume content in digital. So we went from originally in print, we were consuming long-form content to our websites where we were started shortening that content to mobile where it was even shorter. And I think, you know, with things like an iPad, it's forcing people or encouraging people to read more and engage more. Do you think that's something that we can technically handle from our publishing systems and from different things that we do to enable people to consume content on different platforms in a different way?
First, I just want to say I think this is going very well. Nice,
Thank
guys.
you.
Nice one.
Nice pants.
With regards to WAP, are we referring to WAP from the late 90s? Is that the same WAP?
Yeah. Mobile web.
Yeah. We left WAP. We didn't do that. I remember thinking of learning
Old
about
habits
WAP
die hard.
when I was in the UK and I was learning coding and I was doing websites and stuff. And there was this moment where I chose if I should learn WAP or not. And I chose not to, and I thought it died. Did it not die?
No, it's not right.
No, there's still a few guys, using it.
Where's your phone? Let me show you.
It's DigiCape.
Oh, no,
I
that's
can
too
get you a
advanced for
discount if you want. With regards to Two Oceans Vibe, and I think I agree with you, Matt, with regards to trying to get yourself out there but not doing it unnecessarily and choosing every single platform. For example, Facebook, Two Oceans Vibe is a bit weak there, but I think you need to look at what you're dealing with. Two Oceans Vibe is not a product, it's not a retail store. I think Two Oceans Vibe itself is its own Facebook. It doesn't need to engage with Facebook. It doesn't need to put the articles on Facebook because then you're doubling up on the work and there's no need to do that. We do have a Facebook page or whatever, but I never go to it. But then at the same time, I think you need to weigh up 2 or 3 things. One is the slowness of the uptake in South Africa with regards to these new things like iPhones and the online web. There's a lot of people that take that up later on. So you'll be addressing a lot of people at the start, but you'll be missing out on a lot of people. And you need to either wait for them or you need to get them somewhere else. So yeah, with Two Oceans Vibe radio, I think we can get people who are not into the web and they're not into that mobile stuff, but they're quite used to radio and they might not be ready to get into a new iPhone app, but they're used to getting onto the radio and they can at least do that. So they can go to the online website and they can tune into the radio and they're used to that form. And I think it'll take them longer. And I mean, I'm using examples in my mind of my parents and my grandmother, and she's been texting for a long time and now she's doing websites and now she's starting to look at an iPhone. There's a lot of people who only started to get into the iPad now, the iPad 2, which I think is a smart move because then you miss out on all the bugs.
All 7 of them.
Yeah. No, the iPad 2, I must just say, DigiCape are just
Okay.
I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to do that. But
You're doing it.
yeah. No, the only reason I mentioned DigiCape was that I speak. You guys are hilarious.
If you can do it for the 3rd time.
No, was because I speak directly to the MD, and there's a lot of people that buy there via me. And I've seen, I mean, via me, there've been about 20 friends and family and friends, parents who aren't that web savvy, but they're buying themselves an iPad. So Two Oceans Vibe needs to be available there as well. And I think you're right. If you just do like a bigger net, then you can nail it. But it's not the same big net approach that you see with corporates with regards to advertising, which is called the shotgun approach, which is do the billboard on the side of the road and do the radio 30-second ads at 10 grand a shot, one off. And I spoke to a guy he's a marketing guy at a leading cell phone firm, and he told me straight. He said it's called the shotgun approach, and we work on a 50-50 scenario. We don't know which 50% works, but one of them do.
Okay, well, I guess I am the corporate stiff from that corporate that does those radio sales and the billboard sales and those digital media sales. And I think we can safely say that that's still making money. So let's talk money. Is there money in these new models and in this shotgun approach? Is it giving value to the advertisers? Better value?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun with the new technologies. You're offering them to try out something new as well as the traditional, and when I say traditional, I mean the online and traditional banner ads, editorials, etc. As you can now offer them packages which are cross-platform, and they can do some fun stuff there with something new like Two Oceans Vibe Radio. Is they can spend an nth of what they're spending on mainstream radio, and they'll hopefully be nailing smaller pockets. And another thing that I didn't mention in the previous point, was DigiCape. It was a lot of these technologies. For example, Twitter comes out, and the first movers there are generally the geeks. So you got all this movement on Twitter, and it's actually mainly geeks. Do the corporates need to get into it at that point, or do they need to wait for the rest of the people to join on? But in a way, they should be getting in early, because when the other people join in, the geeks that were there at the start turn into the opinion leaders, because the new people join on and they start to follow them. So it's something that the brands out there need to consider. But I think, to answer your question, cross-platform marketing, advertising, definitely there's a need for it. And like I say, it's fun, because you'll get a small amount of people that go onto Ocean Vibe Radio, and they do hear the brand there. And that might be the time that they do see the brand, because they might miss the banner ad.
Okay, well, let's just talk about that, especially because 24 also does a lot of multi-platform publishing. Is the value so that you can say there is a brand, or do you think that you're adding true value to your audience and to the consumer and advertiser?
So when we look at it as publishing, so our view on publishing is that our business is kind of built on three things, right? It's built on, it's built on technology, it's built on content, and it's built on community. We use our tech platforms to spread across every device that we possibly can, to make sure that our content is available. We use our content as a means to engage community. So why do we do this, like kind of as media players? Well, we do it because we need scale. We need large audiences. And why do we need large audiences? Because we want to be able to take those large audiences and start using the technology at our fingertips to be able to segment accurately for marketers, right? So the first part of it is that kind of, you're probably going to get different layers of publishers, right? The guys are going to go, for massive scale, and they kind of build out segments as they go. You're going to go, find guys who are going to build a niche, and say, we're going to find a profitable area and just focus on that one thing. But in all of these areas, like kind of, what are you doing? You're building segments. You're building segments that, typically you're going to be selling to a marketer. So yeah, we think we're adding value in that way. We think we're adding value to advertisers in being able to accurately represent a target market across multiple devices, being able to match intent, either contextually or through past behavioral conditioning, to a particular outcome. So that when the marketer approaches with a message, there's a message that engages that audience.
Okay, on that point, I think one of the things that we all know is that we talk about all these innovations and all these great things, but the majority of campaigns are still being measured on a click-through rate. If we're talking about engagement, does that mean that we need to change the way that we measure advertising by starting to measure engagement, audience behavior? Should we be looking at that, Matt?
Well, I think publishers for a very, very long time have been completely behind the curve on the whole behavioral thing. I mean, if you look at the advertising model, I mean, I die 1,000 deaths when I look at it, because it's terrible. I mean, it's our primary business model, but it's terrible. And I know it needs to change, but at the same time, we can't just come up with completely new propositions that leave the advertising market behind. We've got to kind of work with the existing kind of advertising market out there, the existing agencies. So, I think it's we're doing pockets of innovation within an existing paradigm, which I think is a bit faulty. I think the big problem that we've had in the online publishing world is we've actually imported an ad model that comes from the print world. And then just added click-throughs and a couple of other layers on top. But I still think the advertising model online is quite fraught, and we've got a way to go. In many ways, we've become too obsessed with page impressions and click-throughs and all that crap, and we've actually forgotten about the whole sponsorships area. I mean, I was listening to actually it was during a cricket match. The head of marketing for South African breweries was saying, well, the reason why they spend so much on cricket, for example, they buy, they put their brand, and they sponsor the South African cricket team or whatever they do, is that in that environment, people's filters come down. You know, they're not trying to filter out advertising. They're not trying to push advertising away. They're quite receptive to that advertising. They see a positive association with that brand and the cricket team, for example. You know, there's a positive association. They see the support. So I think there's still a lot of value for very unique and strong sponsorships in niche brands, for example, where it's got a strong, loyal user base that enjoy that brand, and they will enjoy advertising, enjoy sponsorships that come in there that's relevant. You know, and that can be measured a number of ways, not necessarily click-throughs or page impressions. I don't have the answer, but I do think there are problems with it.
So the summary there is media is, like online media right now is one of the cuckest businesses to be in.
Absolutely.
Look, I don't know if there's anybody in the audience here who does that, but it really is, it's a really tough gig. You know what I mean? It's like it's tough to raise money. It's in this market in South Africa specifically, we're building up audience and almost building like kind of the advertising and engagement models as we go, which is exciting, but also kind of, you know, insanely like kind of challenging, and doesn't necessarily, you know, provide an environment for new companies to start. You know what I mean? Like kind of for new guys for anybody like kind of start off a new publishing venture in this space, it's incredibly tough. You know, I mean, I think what you've done is fantastic, Matt, as well. You know, you've taken on a new space and you've built up a thriving audience.
Well, the thing that I found with the Two Oceans Vibe is, because we started how we did as a blog, it started out with the relationships. I don't have too many strong relationships with the agencies out there, because it's always been this kind of close bond with my different brands, and we've been like making things up as we go along. We'll do something fun. We'll do like a competition which includes Twitter and engagement. It includes banner ads. It includes a few things, and you can't sell that kind of thing to the agencies. So we were fortunate enough to have the relationships direct with the brands. And now I find with Two Oceans Vibe, when you get on the last month, whatever it was, 400,000 page impressions, then you realize that you're actually missing a trick there, and you do have to go to the agencies and you have to play by their old model. But you can't go in there and say, how about we do this thing with that brand of yours and it'll be like this? And they always go, we don't really do it like that. We do it like this. And they need to be re-educated. They need to think out the box. But it's turned into this like route. Like what do you have? What are your answers to these three things? Because then we can give it to those guys. And you can't go straight to the brands, because the brands will tell you to talk to the agencies. And I mean, certainly Two Oceans Vibe Radio is a great example now, because you're dealing with a medium there which is part old school radio and it's part new school web. So you get, if you talk to one person, they want to tell you, they want to ask you like radio-based figures. And you talk to someone else and they want to ask you CPM, and it's like, no, you can't do that. And you almost need to make up a new one. So once you made up that new one, that's one thing, but then you need to go to the agencies and teach them that. So you'd rather go direct to these brands that you have the relationships with, and you say to them, how about we do this? For example, Minnie and us are doing this series. It'll be 12 episodes of me and the Minnie, and I'll be showing a shortcut on the road each time. There'll be 5 in Cape Town, or 6 in Cape Town, 6 in Joburg. And that's a fun thing. It's a great branding exercise. Shortcuts, everybody wants to learn a new shortcut on the road. It gives Minnie an opportunity to show off one feature per video of their cars. But you can't go to an agency and show them that.
On a different note, we've got the launch of Flipboard and Zeit and things like that, where the big attraction to those is we're enabled to consume content. But the best thing about it is there's no ads. And I think that's what the thing is that, you know, most people love about it. I mean, the fact that the content is coming in from other people's, you know, investment, that's one issue. The second issue is, you know, is this going to be a threat to us? Is this a threat to publishers? You know, that we're going to have to start looking for models outside of advertising revenue.
No, for sure. I mean, look, what is the issue with digital content? Okay, is that it can be shared. can be shared really, really easily. You know, I mean, this is almost the foundation, the building block of the web, is that content can flow quickly from one place to another. So what happens? So particularly like kind of in the applications you're talking about, it's like it's another step of aggregation of other people's content or your own content into a bundle of value that you provide, right? So I don't see any way that you can't not engage with this somehow, you know? I mean, the fact of it is that kind of the digital economics say there's more content available than anybody can consume ever, you know, ever, all right? And whether it's you being aggregated or somebody else being aggregated into a platform, it's going to happen. So how do you combat that? Well, you become the best aggregator yourself. I mean, this is the thing, you know, you build a brand presence around how well you can curate content from multiple sources. You've got to give up on the fact of, as publishers, as kind of media owners, of saying, you know, we are the, you know, we own this space. We know everything about this. We will tell you, the consumers, what is important. You've got to position yourself as a media owner, as a platform, to be able to aggregate in other services, other content. And then say, actually, the value offering that we provide you, the consumers, is a particular view on stuff, okay? And if you choose to engage with us, it's because of that view.
I agree with you. I think with a lot of the large news houses, the online ones in South Africa, is very often you find a story there. I mean, given my consumption of the news is not the same as a normal person. I'm just looking around for the latest story that's just hit, and I'll scour the web, and I'll find that, and I'll nail it if I like it. But a lot of the articles that you find on the big news sites in South Africa is they're fed from the likes of Associated and Reuters, and very often the same story, it turns up somewhere else. For us, I think part of the success of Two Oceans Vibe is we handpick the news, and I think you will lose out on that on the likes of Flipboard, because Flipboard is basically done by a robot or a consumer. It's not handpicked personal preference. Two Oceans Vibe has a rule, and it's we publish news that we think people talk about that day.
But remember, Flipboard's a platform, right? So,
Yeah.
so we're talking about tech
Just
platform.
another platform.
Yeah.
So it's just another platform. So they can plug in your content into that and like kind of bulk up around it. So
But it's
consumers
low-
can add that.
For me, I don't want to have just a few sites on the one screen. I go to like 100 sites, and it's just a case of it's not just surfing on the web. It's Twitter, and that's where I get my news. It's everywhere. It's not just one place. I think you'll be slightly restricted if you only stick to that one thing.
Well, I don't think that's what Jeff's saying. He's saying it is another way to bring your content together, because you might enjoy doing that, but other people who maybe have less time on their hands want to consume
True.
it in a single place, and you're offering that as an alternative. So I think you shouldn't say one against the other. The point is about where do you deliver the most value to the most people, where are those consumers, and can we still generate the ad revenues to sustain the model?
You know, Nikki, those, I mean, Flipboard's an aggregator, Google News is an aggregator, and I think it also depends on the type of content. So text, there's never really been a problem, because there's always a quid pro quo. I mean, like publishers have tolerated aggregators, in fact enjoyed aggregators. There's been a bit of a love-hate relationship, because the quid pro quo is those aggregators send, you know, shitloads of traffic to those publishers. And, you know, Flipboard publishes a segment of that content and then pushes traffic to the publisher. You know, that's great. You know, there's a little bit of tension there, but it's great. You know, if they take too much content, then it's a problem. Then you get the lawyers involved, like New York Times did. But I guess there's a problem when it comes to photos, because how do you take a bit of a photo? You know, I mean, the aggregation around photos. I mean, that's intellectual property. That's someone used an expensive camera. That's their career, and that content's been aggregated, been taken from that photographer. That is a problem. And you could argue the same with video. So I think it depends on the type of content. At the moment, aggregation, there's a bit of a tussle around it. You know, they tolerate it, they enjoy it. The big secret for publishers is that, you know, most publishers get the majority of their traffic from Google News. It's a big aggregator. There's a big standoff between publishers and Google News, but Google News feeds those publishers.
I think the funny part is how Flipboard is, you know, so controversial at the moment, but Google News has been doing it for ages. So
Google News doesn't put ads on the content.
yeah, no ads, but Flipboard's got no ads on the content.
Okay, I thought Flipboard did.
So it's aggregating it in so you can see it prior to seeing the advertising. And I think the funny thing about that you say about the images is the photos that are coming in to Flipboard and to Zeit, that's what is the attractive feature. It's the photos. But I guess it's, the age-old debate. It's in the public domain. So now who owns it? I think we're still going to see a lot come out of this about who owns what content. But I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is what are we doing as the media owner to deliver better content to a wider audience, and how are we at the same time adding better value to our advertisers. And trying to match that model without, going for the age-old click-through rate. This is therefore a success or a failure.
It's a much more innovative world in developed markets. But I think it's time for us to stop comparing ourselves to developed markets, stop comparing ourselves to what's happening in the States or the UK or in Europe. That's not our territory. To try and crack that network, you need, I almost said crap loads, a whole lot of money, and you need
use the F word.
Yeah, you need a whole lot of money, and it's very, very difficult to crack those networks. They're very, very established. I think emerging markets are where we should be.
Yeah.
There's a lot more of a receptive market out there. It's much easier to launch a WAP product or a mobile app in India than, let's say, it is in the States, where there's huge amounts of competition.
Why do we, define global for me. Why are we looking global? So for us as South Africans, as like kind of, people that come within the African continent, to me, it's not about trying to, or certainly for us as publishers, it's not about trying to crack the American market, kind of incredibly competitive, incredibly overtraded. It's about how do you solve problems with media in Africa? How do you use the ability to connect and engage audiences in Africa? And I don't think I don't think we've done a fantastic job in South Africa yet. But that's where in my view, that's where we should be be pushing.
We're also very hard on ourselves. I know we go 5.5 to 6 or 7 million, but also look at a lot of developed countries like Austria, Norway. We've actually got a bigger internet audience than them. I know in the context of the overall population, that's small percentage, but there is still a significant internet audience here. So, we actually are quite hard on ourselves. I think there is a significant market here, especially if you compare it to some developed countries.
I think it's fairly cool with regards to, if you look at just the US compared to us, I agree there's no need to look at it, but I think what is very cool for the business owners and the entrepreneurs out there is we are generally 5 years behind, and that's not just with regards to that kind of stuff, it's also the tech side, like broadband and the uncapped broadband connections came here 5 years late. So if you can just watch the US, it can help you a huge amount here. I think it's amazing for startups trying to do their thing. A very good example is obviously Groupon started there. All these guys started it here. Groupon came over and chose one guy and nailed it like that. But those guys wouldn't have known if they didn't have the 5-year head start.
I agree. I think we just need to see what we need to take from it. We need to take the innovation. We need to accept what we've got. But I think we need to, it elevates our thinking by, I think this community that we're in here today, when we talk amongst ourselves, we don't talk at any level that's lower than the States, than Europe. We talk on the same level. Our infrastructure does let us down, but I think just being exposed to that all the time encourages us to think bigger. Sure. And we're quite arrogant as South Africans, as we ever said before. We love what we do. We love being here. And nothing really gets in our way. We don't really see it as a limitation. We know it's there. We don't really talk about it. We find ways around it, and I think that's where we come.
Well, I also think a way around it, is anyone who goes to the big international mobile conferences, this country is held to be a really, really big and important innovator. And we were speaking to Herman Hunis the other day. I think Mixit's around about, 37 million unique users, even if you halve that, that's still pretty impressive. So I guess in the response to quite a poor desktop market, some platforms have gone strong into mobile. I'd like to see more Mixits, more applications like Mixits, but I'm quite confident that that's going to happen. The Mbono launch from Google. I mean, that's amazing. They chose Cape Town, not South Africa, Cape Town, you know, to launch that initiative.
Different.